You know, Balky, I thought I was missing Christmas with my family and my friends, but I'm not. You're here. We're talking top 10 80s TV Christmas episodes. Hit it. It was the 1980s. John Lennon was assassinated, breakdancing was popularized, Teddy Ruxpin was a bestseller, and the TV shows all had the raddest Christmas episodes. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me is a Totally Rad Christmas all-star and a man who's literally written the book on Christmas. Author of The Christmas Book, it's Ed Daly. Ed, how's it going?
Hey, Jerry. Good to be on the show again.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on. How's life been treating you?
Pretty well. It was a chaotic final month of the year, just trying to push my book wherever I could.
Yeah.
And then it's weird because then do all this push for my book, the Christmas book, to try to include it in people's Christmas shopping, and then all of a sudden I've had no interviews since December. So.
I understand. I have a Christmas podcast, so I definitely understand. But yes, thank you for the book. It's a great resource, and I love it. It's really, really entertaining, very well written, and thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. So thanks.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was quite a passion. I remember last time we were talking about all the months you spent, getting it done. But I'm sure it was quite a pleasure to see it actually put together and released.
Yeah, and I don't remember if we discussed this, but TV was really what pushed me to write this book. It was like TV episodes. So what we're talking about today is
nice,
near and dear to my heart.
Right on. Well, there's a lot of them. I had like the hardest time narrowing it down to just 10.
Yeah, and we had talked about doing this a few weeks ago. So I made a list and then I revisited and I was like, no, that's got to go above that. And I changed my list like 3 times. It's funny.
I did the same thing, actually. I was like, yeah, these are it. And then I went back a few days ago and looked at it and said, no, I'm missing. How can I forget this one? And right. So it's been revised. I don't even know if this is my final version, but this is the version that's going to be presented today.
Right. Check back in with me 6 months from now and I'll have a completely different podcast.
Exactly. Now, like I said, I had a really super hard time deciding on these top 10. So I kind of want to mention just a few honorable mentions that I chose. And some of them might be included in your list. I don't know. But okay. So one of them was 21 Jump Street, Christmas in Saigon. Not like one of my favorites, but it stood out because of the subject matter to me. Like I remember watching it as a kid and just, it was all about Vietnam, the war, and
Harry Aoki.
That's right. Aoki. Harry Aoki. Yeah. So that was one. Brave Star, because I used to love Brave Star when I was younger, and Texas Terrible Night. It's like its own version of A Christmas Carol, where one of the mystic characters, Shaman, he kind of takes Tex Hex on a review of his past, present, and future. So it's really interesting. Tales from the Crypt is another one, and All Through the House, where the wife murders her husband, and then a crazed Santa also comes after her. It's like about
that one made my list.
Okay, cool. I'll let you explain it then. The Dukes of Hazzard, The Great Santa Claus Chase was a great one. 227 Merry's Christmas, Magnum PI, Operation Silent Night. Like these are all some of my favorites. Cheers, Who's the Boss? They all had great episodes. And Moonlighting. I liked both Moonlighting episodes as well.
Yes.
But not quite enough to put them on my list today. If you ask me tomorrow, it might be different. But let's get down to it. Let's start with number 10. So we're doing a top 10 of our 80s our favorite 80s Christmas TV show episodes. And I'll let you go ahead and start. So why don't you start with number 10?
So two specials that I loved, but they were more specials and not episodes.
That's okay.
So I didn't include Pee-wee's Playhouse Christmas special, even though I love it. It's a fun variety show, but that was not like a Saturday morning show.
Right.
That was its own evening. And same with my first favorite Christmas related media was probably Christmas Eve on Sesame Street.
Yes.
But that also was a special. That wasn't an episode. So I love that when you saw them outside the street ice skating, they were
yes.
Oscar was skates below the trash can and stuff. That made me go crazy when I was like 4, 5. Like I love that special, but I didn't include that here. My number 10 was The Golden Girls, The Nightmare Before Christmas in 1980.
All right. That's a good one.
And so they were held hostage by a man dressed as Santa Claus at a grief counseling.
Yes.
And it was, just the jabs left and right, the verbal jabs at each other. And I thought it was pretty well written, some funny lines. And then all of their flights end up getting grounded, and they go to a diner together and have like a Christmas dinner at a diner.
Yeah. Yes. And this is also one of my favorites. It's my number 6 actually. And I really enjoy it because this is like where they really become a family, essentially. They right. realize that, they missed their flights home to be with their, blood relatives, but that they're actually family and celebrating Christmas with each other right then and there. And so that's like why I love that
right.
one.
Yeah, it really, you make a good point. It's like they were so desperate to get those flights, and they're like, oh, I'm, this hostage situation, I'm never gonna get to where I need to be for Christmas. And then that diner scene is nice. They acknowledge that they do have a family.
Mm-hmm. And how about that diner owner, I guess he was, just kind of, or the cook or whatever, just kind of leaving the restaurant in the hands of these complete strangers.
Yeah. Right.
It's a different time.
Yeah, I don't think we see that.
No, wouldn't happen nowadays. That's for sure. That was a good one. I like that one, and really moving, especially in light of Betty White's recent passing.
That got bumped into mine when the Betty White tribute started coming in, because I made the list before this, and I had that as one of my honorable mentions, and then I was like thinking about it, and I thought, no, that has to be.
Yeah.
Betty White's passing got me to revisit.
Same here. I actually watched it again as soon as I heard, and sure enough, I realized how much I really enjoy that episode. So
yes,
my number 10 is actually Perfect Strangers, A Christmas Story. So it's their first one from season 2. This is when Larry is super excited to take Balky back to his hometown, and because of the weather, of course, they end up getting stuck, and Balky tries his best to show Larry that they can have Christmas here. And finally, after getting so frustrated with Larry, he kind of blows up on him. Then Larry realizes that Balky's family as well. And, after all these months,
right.
And he knits him that, what was it, a throw or a blanket? I don't remember what it was, but
I think it was
a blanket. Yeah.
Or was it a sweater? Yeah, maybe it was.
Yeah. And he like just stayed there for months, knitting it every night after Larry would go to sleep. And he's just trying his hardest, and I love that, because again, you get that same kind of, oh yeah, we really are family here. Yeah, I'm not going to be the Christmas boy, passing out presents, but here we are, and this is what Christmas really is about: is our family and being together.
They also had another Christmas episode with when they were at the newspaper with Mr. Gorpley, yes. And the guy was like really nasty to everybody, and it was a pretty rough episode. Like, it was just a lot of meanness until the very end. That one.
And I like that one too. But because of that, Mr. Gorpley is a little bit unbearable at times. So that's why I went with this one instead. But I think that one was called like one. The Gift of the Meepiat or something like that.
Yes, right.
I like Mr. Gorpley. I mean, in moderation.
It's one of those things of all the different redemption stories they do with Christmas episodes, like Taxi redeeming DeVito's character.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his. But some guys, you just wonder, like, well, would they really have Mr. Gorpley to their party? And then he's nasty to everyone. But but yeah, that's a common theme to redeem the jerk of the show.
And he does get that redemption, which I do love. But yes, I think they just stayed with Mr. Gorpley too long. I like his small little sections in each episode, and that's about it. But
Yeah,
thank goodness, yeah, Balky helps teach everyone. Again, it's always Balky. He's the innocent one,
right.
the pure-hearted one. What Christmas is all about. Yeah. But what about number 9?
For me, number 9, I have it's Gary Shandling's show, the Christmas episode. And they have it's Gary Shandling just doing that weird show where he's breaking the fourth
Mm-hmm.
wall, and he's going through some issues at Christmas, and then the guests leave his party early. One of the guests is caroling Tom Petty is just randomly part of it, and his mother gives him his father's watch for Christmas, and then it goes missing, and the episode is him trying to figure out who took it, and at one point he tries to um, look under the cushions, and instead the camera rotates upside down, so like his entire home is upside down, trying to shake everything out. I just thought it was funny, and it's vintage Gary Shandling just being weird on a show that really was not like other
I really
sitcoms.
liked the Gary Shandling show, and I agree. It was definitely ahead of its time. I think I like the one, or the one that always sticks in my mind is when he marries his maid, I believe, to help get her a green card.
Yes, yes,
That, yeah, that's the one that I always remember. But it was different and odd and quirky, and just it kind of was like his stand up in a way. It was more like his stand up than the Larry Sanders show was.
right. It was much more joke oriented, one liners thrown in there, whereas Larry Sanders show was like a fully uh, fleshed out idea. It was so much different than any other show
Mm-hmm.
that it's Gary Shandling show was right down to the theme song. It was just funny and
It's
weird.
one of like my all-time favorite theme songs, because it's just so
Yeah,
meta. It's like this is the theme to Gary show. It says like Gary called me up
right.
and asked if I would write his theme song. I mean, it's brilliant. It really is.
Yeah, it's a real wink at the audience kind of
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. That's good. I'd forgotten all about the Gary Shandling show until you mentioned it right now. And now I want to go back and just binge it if I can.
Yeah, it's available. Maybe Daily Motion or one of those websites.
Gotcha.
There's a bunch.
Cool. I'll definitely have to check it out because I don't remember the Christmas episode, so I'm very excited to dive back in. But I do remember that theme song. It's very memorable. My number 9 was actually Saint Elsewhere. Santa Claus is Dead.
Yeah, that's a lot's going on in that,
It's a
right?
lot. Yeah. Yeah. The basic premise, the what the show is named after, is that a Santa that they hired to come and visit with the children. He has some sort of heart attack or medical incident, and then they have to perform surgery on him, and he does end up passing away. But that's like one plot. There's like a whole other plot with like Dr. Ehrlich giving out presents and no one like giving any to him, and because he has no friends. And then there's a whole nother plot where, oh gosh,
Ed Begley,
yeah, that was Ed.
Ed Begley Jr.
Yeah, that was him. Yeah,
Is that what we?
yeah, that's
He's
he's too
cheap.
cheap. Yeah, there's the one where the father of the autistic boy, he he just they don't really do Christmas very very big at all, and so finally he's convinced to go to, his family is convinced to go to church because of the daughter's boyfriend, and he's feeling lonely, so he ends up going after like a long fight with Mr. Feeney's character, Dr. Craig, and it always took me a while. I always pictured Mr. Feeney first, um, but it's really really interesting, and Dr. Craig is having a whole thing. Like he has this huge Christmas party. It's like all the trimmings, everything. He goes all out, but he had just like lost his son, and so he has to hand off like some of his family traditions now to his granddaughter, and so he's feeling emotional, and he doesn't feel like he needs to go to church. And I mean, there's like a lot going on, and underneath that we get Denzel Washington and Howie Mandel as well. So so that's a
Yeah,
win.
it was an impressive
Yeah.
cast. It was a very, and I remember. watching it while researching my book, and it's a very like layered episode. There's they're able to jump around. That was an hour long
It
show, right?
was, yeah, yeah. So they had the luxury of fleshing that out a bit more. I
Yeah,
really like this episode. I think there's again, it's like dealing with grief during the holiday times. It's dealing with loneliness, and so I find it all to be a very not refreshing because that's not the right word, but just intriguing because I've been very blessed to have all my family around me for most of the time, and so I just that exploration of some of these themes was something new and different for me, and I really enjoy it. So that one made my top 10 for sure.
yeah, that's a solid episode, and I didn't think of adding that one, but thinking back, yeah, that's a good one. My list is almost all
That's
sitcoms
okay.
I will because an episode like that I like, but I won't revisit as much as a comedy, like something light.
Yeah.
So I think the episodes I think about around Christmas are tend to be the funnier ones. But that's a very solid episode. This is the maybe the one non funny one. My number 8 is the Tales from the Crypt and All Through the House from
That's
1989.
good.
Um, so it's a woman murdering her husband, um, and news has leaked that there's an escaped mental patient dressed as a Santa Claus murdering people, and she's like, "Oh, well, here's how I can get away with it. Say that he was killed by this guy." But the problem is, while she's doing the murder and everything, she's leaving herself vulnerable to the crazed Santa Claus roaming. And it's
It is
fun,
fun. Yeah.
and it's interesting. I just found this out that it's just a straight up remake of a 1972. I knew there was a Tales from the Crypt movie. Yeah, Joan Collins is the one, and that one focuses. It's like the Tales from the Crypt movie. The opening segment, it's vignettes, and the opening segment is the Christmas
Hmm.
scene. And it's the same thing, except that focuses more on her really just trying to deal with the cleanup of the murder before, like covering her bases before she can call the cops because there's a killer coming after her. So it's more like she's dealing with one thing before she can deal with the
Right.
murderer on the loose that might get her. Um, but it's a silly horror slasher kind of feel to it, and it's yeah, kind of a good chaser for the holidays.
It's funny because like that's one of the real holiday tropes of slasher films is the the villain dressed up as Santa Claus.
Yes, no, it's happened so many times.
Oh yeah, yeah. Christmas Evil, Silent Night, Deadly Night, all those. But yeah, so and now we can add Tales from the Crypt to that list as well.
Yeah, so I guess the original Tales from the Crypt that might have been the first one, the 1972 Crazy
Oh
Santa.
yeah, I guess so.
That might have been that might have been the first.
And then because Black Christmas was what, 74? I haven't seen that one in a long time. I don't even remember if that's a crazed Santa killer or not.
I don't think
I
it's
don't
a
think it is
I
either.
don't think it's a
Yeah,
Crazy
I think
Santa.
Christmas Evil would be next.
The call
Yeah.
the call is coming from in the
Oh,
house.
that's
That
right.
was the
Yeah.
first Black Christmas. That was the first one.
Yeah. So then it would be Christmas Evil. Wow. All right. Well, we'll put it down as a as a first here. I don't know if it is, but I'm going to say it is. That's a good one. I'm going to kind of piggyback off that comedy part, not so much the macabre, but I'm going to go with Full House, our very first Christmas show for my number 8. This is
Okay.
one I remember very vividly because I was always worried that if I ever flew, when I was a kid, if we ever flew to go see family anywhere, and we never did, but if we did, I was afraid we were going to get stuck and we would have to have some sort of, hijinks like this. But essentially, they're going the whole Tanner family plus Joey and Jesse and his parents are at the airport because they're flying to see family. Becky is there as well because she's going to go see her family. They get snowed in, and it deals with Stephanie really trying to figure out how Santa's going to find him and her despair.
And tomorrow morning when you wake up, I guarantee you the roller skates you asked for will be here. How can you be sure? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer will find you. Because his nose is radar. All these years, I thought it was just a headlight.
So there's that. There's also the whole Jesse trying to get with Becky angle, and and of course, in the end, Christmas miracles do happen, and Santa does find them. And I love that Santa was actually played by Boss Hogg. So, so
Oh, great.
yeah. So it was a nice little change of pace there for Boss Hogg. I don't remember his real name.
Nice. Yeah, I can't. I was racking my brain. I can't think of who he was.
Yeah.
Denver Pyle. I'm trying to think. I know some of the actors, but not Bob.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one I really enjoy. That one means a little bit more because I got to watch it with my daughter, my oldest. And
cool.
so she was really feeling everything that Stephanie felt. And I mean, it was wonderful. We got to bond over it because I felt the same thing when I was her, as when I was younger. So yeah, it was great. That's my number 8, I think.
Yeah, I had definitely had that concern when I was a kid in third grade, we went to we were living for a couple of years. We lived in a different place, and we flew back to New Jersey, where I'm from, Christmas. And I was like, well, we're not at home now. What are we? We're flying to my grandparents' house. Like, does he know? Because I don't think he visits grandma and grandpa. So what's going to happen there? Yeah, he found the way.
Santa knows. Yeah, he knows how to find you.
He knows. Exactly.
Excuse me. So what do you got for number 7 here?
So my number 7 is very weird. And Late Night with David Letterman, when he was the early days, he would hijack entire shows and just do something really off the wall. It later became just a segment where he'd just do one funny thing or one planned bit, but he took an entire episode. It was just a regular episode. And he made it seem like one of those corny, old-fashioned, like kind of like a Bing Crosby kind of Andy Williams type special. And it was Christmas with the Lettermans in 1984. And he had the Doodletown Pipers open it up with this like really bland music, and he's wearing a sweater vest and a flannel shirt, and he's got a fake family, but like weirdly, like he sends the 5-year-old out. He goes, all right, it's time to go get the tree. And he just sends the 5-year-old out with $50 and says, just go, like a snowstorm. And they make this like fake living room, and it's just so weird and bizarre. It's on YouTube. And he has Pat Boone come on.
Oh, wow.
As like a guest. And Pat Boone is promoting exactly one of these specials at the same time that he's making fun of. And it's just really funny. And then Pat Boone, and you can't quite tell, like, is Pat Boone on the joke, or is he just plowing ahead and not really thinking about it? And Pat asked him what Christmas means to him, and then he wanders off, and then he finds himself under a mistletoe, and he's like, well, I don't remember what your question was, but I hope I get lucky.
That's classic Letterman.
It's just full bizarro, like old Letterman. And it's funny. It's a good takedown of all the corny 70s specials.
And there was quite a few of them, and a lot of them actually persisted through the 80s as well. Andy Williams in particular, really, he kind of kept going. But
he'd just be in a sled. Oh, here I am in Vienna, and singing along.
Exactly. Yeah.
There wasn't much content. It was just singing, but like they would add. I mean, even Bing Crosby, the famous or infamous duet with Bowie, he was like pretending to be just visiting England, right. And the next door neighbor came by, and that was David Bowie. They always had pretty corny premises.
I kind of want to do my own now, just to just to see how corny I can make it.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's the Queen of England. She just happens to be here.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Exactly. But I do a terrible Queen of England impression.
Look, George Bush happens to be coming over for a cup of sugar.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's Bill Clinton. Oh man, that's good. My number 7 actually isn't that good. That's a good one. Mine is from G.I. Joe. It's Cobra Claws are coming to town.
Oh,
because I used to love G.I. Joe. So this one is I love this one.
Is that the one with the parrot?
The one with the parrot. Yeah. Yeah.
Johnson.
Destro creates an invention, because he's always doing that, which can shrink all of Cobra's troops down, and they kind of sneak inside some presents that the Joes are going to give out for like a Toys for Tots kind of thing. And then they embiggen themselves in and take over GI Joe base and steal their weapons and planes and everything, their vehicles, so that they can frame the Joes for taking over a town and essentially asserting martial law. So it's really convoluted. Somehow Polly, Shipwreck's parrot, gets really giant size and helps save the day. And
does he yodel or something? Jingle bells? Like, I think he sings.
He does,
while he's swooping down and like taking down helicopters.
Yeah, it's bizarre, and I love it. It's one of those random ones, kind of like yours was pretty random, but in a weird way that only GI Joe could be.
Yeah, if you're gonna be GI Joe, you got to go big, right?
Yeah. So poor Polly. Eventually, the Joes win, and of course, the day is saved. But that one holds a special place in my heart because I used to love GI Joes.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Oh man.
My number 6, I have Newhart, no room at the end from 1982, and it might have been the first or second season because it was before Peter Scolari and Julia Duffy, before they showed up. It was with some different people, but you had Tom Poston and he's running the inn in Vermont, and I think this is it's their first Christmas in Vermont, and so Dick wants it a certain what he has an idea of what this festive Christmas in Vermont should be, and it's not the traditional Christmas he wanted, because there's a big snowstorm, and the people who are staying there are annoyed because they can't go skiing on Christmas, and then they have to share what they were going to have for their private dinner. They have to give out some of the food that he wanted. He wanted things a certain way, and it's called No Room at the Inn. And the way that the episode wraps up is pretty funny because there's a Joe and Mary that's pregnant, and it's imminent in this snowstorm, and there's no room at the inn, and so they have to give up their own bedroom to the couple. But it's a funny episode.
My favorite bit of that special is at the very end. It's like the end tag where some guy's card breaks down. He comes to ask for help, and his last name is Wiseman. It's like him and his 2 brothers. So there's 3 Wiseman.
That's right, the 3 Wiseman. Yeah.
So there's Joseph and Mary giving birth, and there's no room at the inn, and 3 Wiseman come. Yeah, that's a great one. I love that one. It's really good. Now, for my number 6, I actually, like I mentioned, was the Golden Girls episode, and with that deranged Santa, and we get wasn't it Mr. Gorpley actually the actor that plays Mr. Gorpley? He's the one of the patients that's the habitual liar, I believe.
Yeah. That guy got a lot of work.
Yeah, he did.
He was
character actor.
He was in a lot of. I was definitely very aware of him by the time he became Gorpley. Like, he was in stuff.
Character actor extraordinaire. Yeah, he's just like a pathological liar, and he tricks them into giving him some money. And of course, Rose is the one that's actually volunteering, which is so Rose. That sounds like right up her alley. Yeah. She's trying to help people, and as I mentioned before, it's just fantastic. I love the end where they kind of take over the diner and with the snow, and it's a very, very fun episode. And that one, because of, again, like I said, I revisited it recently, and I think all the nostalgia with Betty White and her passing, and it kind of bumped it up a couple of notches for me.
Yeah.
Ooh, we reached the halfway mark. Before we continue, some of our listeners actually wrote in and had some of their own comments. So on Twitter, Mark Rowley actually said that one of his favorites was Wurzel Gummidge, cup of tea and a slice of cake. That one I'd never heard of. It's
I thought I'd researched them all, but I don't know that one.
Apparently, I think it's a British show.
Sounds
I had never that one was definitely. That went way over my head because I'd never heard of that one before.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to track that down.
It's Wurzel, I think, maybe Wurzel. It's Worzel, and then Gummidge, Gummidge. So odd. Anyway, a few listeners, double A from Just Another Friday Night podcast said The Wonder Years, Christmas, MASH, Death Takes a Holiday, Married with Children, It's a Bundyful Life. Chad Wansick said Growing Pains, The Kid. Ken Kessler said Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. And he also mentioned the 30-something I'll Be Home for Christmas, which and also the Saturday Night Live episodes, season 10, episode 9 with Eddie Murphy was one of his favorites as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. So anyway.
It's when he had the Cabbage Patch Kids and he took a cabbage and stuck it on a doll's head. And he was selling cabbage.
Yeah, I like Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. I like when they're doing the word X, the letter X. Yeah. Escape. Yeah. Classics. But all right, now back to our regularly scheduled episode. So let's go in our final countdown to number 5.
Well, a couple of things. I forgot that first ever Christmas episode of The Simpsons was in the 80s. That was the only 80s Simpsons episode, I guess. So that should have been on my list. It would have been. But I at the same time, I don't know when it bumped. But number 5, you did just mention it, The Wonder Years, Christmas from 1988.
Nice.
Kevin's trying to get a present for Winnie, and the boys are trying to drop hints that they want a color TV from the dad, and you have that element, and then there's a poignant aspect to that episode because it's the first Christmas. Winnie's brother had just died in Vietnam, and they were going through something. So everything got put in perspective for him when they're worried about the TV and he's worried about the gift for Winnie, and then he realizes, they're still in mourning, and it was it's a touching episode.
Yeah,
with some funny parts.
Right. Well, and I think the Wonder Years did that really well. They were able to kind of navigate that balance, of drama and comedy, and I think they really balanced that out throughout their entire run. They did a fantastic job with that. Yeah. And of course, every little boy had a crush on Winnie Cooper. So that's definitely a good one. Yeah.
And it's always a bummer. Every couple of years, somebody would be like, well, the Wonder Years took place in 1987. It was looking back at 1968. So if they did that for today, you'd be looking at 2001 or whatever it is. It's always a bummer when I hear.
A friend of mine just told me that, and I thought, oh, why'd you say that? I can't think of that now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, you think about in the 2000s, we're thinking back to the 80s, but now that's 40 years ago. Yeah. Oof, it's rough. Well, that's a good one. My number 5 is also kind of a bummer, and it's Alf's Special Christmas from season 2.
Wow,
that's a
crazy
heavy episode. Yeah. I mean, a little girl actually died, for this episode, essentially.
Yeah.
It's bad.
I mean, this was, I don't know if they did other episodes where it didn't take place in the house really at all.
And I don't recall them except for maybe the finale.
Shot differently.
Mm-hmm.
It was shot differently. It looks different.
Yeah.
And they throw some heat at the audience with Alf. You were not expecting that when you signed up for Alf.
No, Alf was always, fun and funny. And there was a few episodes here and there where they dealt with things, but Alf was just the fish out of water story that everybody likes to laugh at. And in this one, he accidentally finds himself on a truck of toys destined for a local hospital. And while he's there, he meets a little girl who's dying and only has like a few, well, we don't know how long, but basically her very, very limited time left on Earth. And so he has to kind of, do they mention it?
He hears the doctor saying, the doctors are like, this is going to be your last Christmas. Like they make it pretty clear. Like Alf Alf hears that and then sneaks back in her room.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we know she's going to be passing soon. We just don't know how soon. But there's that storyline. There's also the storyline of the man hired to play Santa, that his wife died and now he feels he has nothing left to live for, and so he wants to commit suicide as well. This was a heavy episode, besides just a family looking for Alf because he's lost.
And I think the old man was played by Cleavon Little from Blazing
Yes,
Saddles.
he was, and he also did a fantastic job, because I bought it when I was little. I completely believed that he wanted to end it. But Alf convinces him, saying that, hey, you're special. You really are like a Santa. You're giving gifts of joy, and I know it's sad, but we'll get through this. And he kind of turns it around. He saves a man's life.
Yeah, he does. It's just the shock and awe of throwing a dying child and then be like, oh wait, there's more. There's also a suicide.
Yeah, it was definitely a blitzkrieg of just. Oh man, it does end happily. She's still alive at the end of the episode, so there's that.
But when it fades to black, it says, in loving memory of Tiffany and a girl that died at like 10 years old or whatever it was. It brings you right back, like, wow, that was based off of real.
Yeah. She'd wanted to be part of the show, and unfortunately they couldn't make it happen, so they did this in tribute to her. But oof, that's a rough episode, but I love it. It's like, just it gets me every time. So I had to put it up there at number 5. So hopefully you can lighten the mood now.
I hope I can, because it's an episode that you and I have already visited. Number 4 for me, Family Ties, a Keaton Christmas Carol. We did an episode a few months ago on that very episode. It's the Dickens with telling with Alex as the Scrooge character, and his sisters play Christmas past and future. They don't do a present. Right,
and I remember thinking that was kind of odd. But they had limited time and they squeezed it in, and it was fun. He sees his future where he's overweight and balding, but ridiculously rich, and his family is living in squalor, and he hires them just to do laundry for him. And crushes her wheelbarrow with his helicopter.
Right, and his first thought, even though his family is living in squalor, he's like, what happened to my hair? That was his first.
But again, it shows how talented Michael J. Fox is.
He was.
Yeah, such a charismatic leading actor.
Arise, Alex, and come hither, for I am charged with showing you the true meaning of Christmas.
Hey, I'm not coming hither. No way.
Alex, come hither.
I'm coming hither. I'm hither.
This is, funnily enough, my number 4 as well. So yeah. So everything about it was fantastic. Yes, the special effects were very dated for their time. The smoke and the way that they kind of superimposed them at first. But it was just so fun and funny. And he goes back and sees exactly how his tradition started of taking a picture of decorating the tree. And it turns out it was his idea. Spoiler alert. But
so number 3 for me, I think, was in your honorable mentions. I really like, and they do have 2 good Christmas episodes, but 'twas the episode before Christmas, Moonlight, where it's the whole premise of the story is that Richard Belzer and another guy, they kill a man, and then his wife takes their baby and escapes the apartment, but before the killers get to her, and she drops the baby off at Miss DePesto's apartment, or in the laundry room, or no, it's in her apartment.
Yeah.
And while DePesto's doing her laundry, she comes back, she just finds this baby, and then she's trying to take care of this baby, and the Blue Moon Detective Agency gets involved with finding out who the mother is, and you realize the mother's name is Mary. Joseph was the father that was killed, and the FBI agents are all last name.
Yeah, the three kings. Yeah,
and it's a fun episode where they're kind of bouncing all over the place, and they get into a fight, and I think, at Maddie's house, and David's throwing all kinds of stuff at the criminals, and it just has a fun. It keeps the tone of that show, that there's some sort of mystery, or a murder that they're trying to solve, but it has a very lighthearted feel to it, and I find it fun. The other one they had was like It's a Wonderful Life, where Maddie wonders if she was never involved with the Blue Moon Detective.
Right, and say, I agree with you. I think this one's better. I love the actual ending where they start, it starts snowing and they start singing, and it turns out they literally just show the whole cast and crew and their family, and the stage and the cameras and everything, and it's talk about breaking the fourth wall. It's
yeah, they totally pan out, and it's like, the lighting guys, everybody's singing "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas," like with their families. So you see like 60, 70 people, all there.
Can you imagine taping that? I bet that would be amazing. Just being there with everybody, and then seeing yourself on TV, and like, oh yeah,
they made it snow. Inside.
Yeah, so that one was nice. I do love that one. My number 3 is actually another cartoon. It's Robotech, Season's Greetings. So this one also is kind of deep for a cartoon. This one really touched me. It's essentially there's a love triangle going on, and one of the members of the love triangle, it's the ex of the main of Rick, the main character, and her name is Min Mei, and she goes back to him because her boyfriend, or ex at this point, has left her, and so she goes back to Rick looking for some sort of comfort. While all this happens, there's also the bad guy. He decides to attack, and so they literally like have all sorts of destruction all over the city. And I really love this one because it ends where it's, there's a priest in front of like the Sacred Heart of Jesus statue, and it's like kind of destroyed a little bit, and he's like already given up his faith, and all the congregation just starts singing Silent Night, and like the whole town just kind of comes together. And so it's another one of those like, don't give up, this is the season of hope kind of spirit, messages. And so I really like this one, even though it's a cartoon. I found it to be incredibly deep. I was not expecting it at all.
I'm not familiar with that one. I got to check it out. It sounds pretty heavy for a cartoon.
The whole saga Robotech, because it's a strange thing. They literally took 3 different cartoons, created a new plot, and mashed them together. And so this is part of the very first episode. It's I think it's episode like number 35 or something like that. And they created this plot where they're trying to the villains, the aliens, are trying to get this particular it's called proto-culture. It's like they need it to power their ships and everything. And so they just do the surprise attack on Christmas Day, and it's, oh man, it gets me. But the whole saga was very adult for its time, which makes sense because it was based on an anime, but it wasn't as heavily edited as like Voltron was, say. So yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with Voltron, but I should check that out.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Sounds
Definitely a good one. What about you? We're down to our final few here.
2. Number 2, Married with Children. And I like a few of the Married with Children. It's a Wonderful Life was one of the ones suggested. I like You Better Watch Out from 1987. And that is not Al's Mall, but this new great mall, the Lakeside Mall, that like even Peg was like, oh, I'm just going to shop there. That's what's the nice mall. And they had a promotion where a skydiving Santa is supposed to be like handing out coupons from the sky, and his parachute doesn't open, and he ends up in the Bundy's backyard. And it's a very funny. I mean, obviously it's dark, a dark premise, but it's funny because it's this traumatizing moment, and also a situation where the people working for the mall are trying to see if they can keep the Santa there, so nobody sees what happened to the Santa, and then they're gonna it revolves around like, well, what do the Bundys get out of this? And then of course, it ends up that they get nothing out of it. And, it's a good episode to show off what is funny about that show, and what the funny, mean-spirited way that they treat each other, but still like they have a fulfilling Christmas nonetheless.
And this was before Jefferson. I think this is when Darcy was married to her first husband.
Yeah, Steve Rhodes.
Yeah.
And Marcy is the only one fully traumatized by the Santa. She's just sitting on the couch, like rocking back and forth, like just.
And Al has to put on the suit, and he goes outside to talk to all the children.
Yes.
Which is a funny
Right.
scene. But it does end happily for the Bundys, because inside the sack that the Santa was carrying, turns out there's a bunch of $10 gift certificates to the new mall. So then they go on a shopping spree and get some Christmas presents.
But Al put on the Santa costume to just get the kids to like go away. Everything's fine.
Right.
But by doing that, the Lakeside Mall was going to cut him a big check. And then they're like, oh, the kids already left, so I guess you don't need our money anymore. And so they ripped up the check for him. But luckily at the end, they did.
Well, and that guy was actually, what was his name? Ray something, the host of Family Feud in like the mid to late 80s. Yeah.
Well, was that Ray Cohn?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, I like that episode. That's a good one too. I didn't watch a lot of Married with Children until the 90s. So that one completely passed me by in 87. But it's a great episode. And I kind of wish I had seen it, because I know I would have just been cracking up the whole time. My number 2 is,
it's really dark.
It is really dark. Yeah. I mean, you don't think like a show is going to kill the man dressed as Santa, and but no, they go there. They do. Which was typical. That was like pushing the envelope for Fox back in the day.
Right. Well, I think that was their angle, right? You already had the 3 networks, and they were trying to establish themselves. And so the shows that stood out were that
The Simpsons,
things that were very, very different. They tried some like traditional sitcoms.
They didn't go anywhere.
Really went nowhere.
Yeah. Well, that's good. My number 2 is actually Night Court. I know the most famous one is, Santa Goes Downtown, and that's a really good one. Also gets very deep. With Michael J. Fox, yeah. But I actually like just a little bit better, and it really is just a little bit. Santa on the Lam. So a department store Santa is replaced by a robotic Santa, and on Christmas Eve, and so he kind of gets upset and he smashes the robot Santa with a golf club, gets arrested, and somehow he manages to escape from the holding cell, and he's got a gun, and he kind of holds hostage Dan Fielding, John Larroquette's character.
Right.
He's really lamenting like the state of Christmas and the state of the world, and how they're just much more selfish, and it's just not the same. And so Dan kind of goes on a whole, it's not the same, but it's it doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's different. And he essentially makes the gentleman playing Santa want to also go to the roof and jump off and commit suicide. And so then Dan, one of the most cynical, self-absorbed characters, has to spend the rest of the episode trying to convince him that Christmas is still worth saving and it's worth living for, and which he ends up doing despite everyone else also having kind of a sour Christmas. And there's that whole little subplot of Harry entertaining this tax attorney, and she gets really drunk and tries to take advantage of him. But there's a lot of other funny bits there. But Dan actually was the hero to me in that one, and he makes that Santa have hope again, that it's okay, for the world. So he goes back to the holding cell, and or he's about to, and then Dan drops all charges, and so he sets him free.
That's a good one. I unfortunately Night Court. I had Santa Goes Downtown. That was in my top 10, but when I was like, I gotta add Golden Girls, that was the casualty.
Yeah.
So Night Court was an honorable mention for me. But that is a very underrated sitcom that, when you think back of 80s shows, like people will talk about Cheers and the Cosby Show, and Night Court really doesn't come up.
Right.
And it's
it really
show.
is.
Really good cast, good dynamic.
Yeah. Well written.
Yeah, that's a good show. A worthy choice. My number 1, I think, was maybe an honorable mention. To me, Christmas Cheers, 1987.
Oh yeah.
That's my favorite episode from the 80s. The main plot is that Sam didn't get a gift for Rebecca, and Woody and Carla did. This was right when the bar had been taken over,
Mhm.
um, and Sam says to Carla something like, "What, you got her a gift? You hate her?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's called kissing up. That's what you do."
Gotta love
And
Carla.
so then he has to go out on Christmas Eve to try to find something, and all the stores are closed. And then he runs into a flight
Yep.
attendant and becomes, Sam Malone doing the Sam Malone thing. And he gets her to give him one of his. He'll buy one of her gifts, and he'll give her the money, and she gives him accidentally some diamond earrings that were supposed to be for her mom. So then he gives Rebecca diamond earrings, and so he shows up Carla and Woody, and then they are so excited to open the presents they got from Sam, and it's like a wallet. They're like, "You got her diamond earrings?" Don't even like her, and it becomes this whole thing. Then Sam thinks he can get her, and then the other two subplots are Norm is playing a Santa, and Carla's like, "Oh, that's what my son meant when he said Santa smells like the place mommy works." Um, and
Brilliant.
is Cliff is trying to win the post office contest for the most canned goods. You get a trip to Orlando, and he comes up one short, and at the end he finds two cans, and so he's trying to get on the plane at the last minute. But
This just into our newsroom. Boston Airport has been temporarily closed due to the presence of a berserk man on runway 6, chasing an Orlando-bound plane and throwing what appears to be cans of Chinese food. Stay tuned for further details.
Cliff.
I was gonna say there's also Frasier who's like cynical and doesn't believe in Christmas. Right. It's commercial, and he ends up finding his spirit at the end as well.
Yeah, it's got it. I mean, it gets all the credit. Unlike Night Court, plenty of people talk about Cheers, but really the cast and the writing, it's so well done that that's my favorite. But what do you have for your favorite?
All right, so my number one, okay, anyway, is the Newhart No Room at the Inn. Actually, that one's one of my favorites. We talked all about it already. Yeah, it's like a group of doctors that go, I think, like the Silver Leaves or Silver Hawks or something like that. They're just there to ski. They can't. Kirk is all upset because their maid is not the right word. Their help, I guess. I don't know what to say there. Is leaving, and he's kind of has a thing for her. And you're right, this is before Peter Scolari and all them. So this was season 1. This was the very first season, and it's I really enjoyed this one. I wish they had done more because I think they would have been fun. But
yes.
Yeah, he has to give up his Christmas ham. There's the whole bit where he chops down like this 12-foot, maybe 14-foot Christmas tree, and they only have enough ornaments for a tiny little tree that sits on like a tabletop tree. and so then Kirk trying to cheer everybody up, since I think Julie was her name. No, not Julie, I don't recall anymore, but since she's not going and she's bummed, he tries to cheer her up because he's all happy that she's staying now. And so he goes to his place and gets a bunch of like random junk to decorate the tree with. And yeah.
What's Tom Poston's character's name? The handyman, George.
Yeah.
And he's realizing that he doesn't have any family to spend
yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like, I'm alone in this world. So yeah, I really enjoy that. And of course, as I mentioned, that stinger with the 3 wise men coming, it was just the cherry on top for me. So that's my favorite. But yeah, a lot of people, when I asked this question online to see what people thought, a lot of them really couldn't think of some from the 80s except for like Cheers and Moonlighting and some of those. And so I find it interesting that a lot of people forget, and there are some really dynamite episodes there. The Keaton Christmas Carol was one, as we mentioned, just all these that we've listed, some of those honorable mentions that I listed. I mean, they're really good episodes that I think people just kind of forget because of, they show I Love Lucy every year, and the Dick Van
Right.
Dyke Show is very memorable, and so it's kind of a bummer that some of these get really overlooked.
Yeah, and now these days, like Christmas episode is a thing
It's a
for
staple,
a
yeah.
sitcom. Like
Mm.
they do one every year.
Right.
But they would, yeah, each show, like a lot of these shows, there would be like two of them, two or three of them, but there's a ton of them, like the ones you mentioned, but so many more. But it's it's they're really fun to revisit. I'm a big fan of going back, and luckily, the internet, you can find most of them.
Yeah, yeah. Very magical thing. But it does make me wonder, what would you say would be, out of all these that we've talked about here, your happiest memory or moment out of all these specials?
So my one of the jokes of the Cheers episode is the constant playing of It's a Wonderful Life. The show opens with that, and they're like, "Oh, yuck!" And then they start getting a little teary-eyed by the conclusion of It's a Wonderful Life. That's how the show opens. But then at the end, where like everything is pretty much wrapped up, you think every story is wrapped up. Woody's like, "Oh, look, they're playing It's a Wonderful Life again," and a reporter cuts into the Channel 13 reporter cuts in and goes, I wrote down, breaking news, Boston Airport was temporarily closed due to a berserk man on runway 6, chasing an Orlando-bound plane and throwing what appears to be Chinese food. And then Norm just goes, "Oh, Cliff. And that's how it ends.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think and because I actually remember this, I remember seeing the Full House episode. And so as far as memories goes, it's got to be watching it with my daughter and just being that. But my favorite part is when he's when Danny was he was sleeping on the conveyor belt, and they accidentally press it, and he gets taken all the way around outside, of course, in the snow, and he comes back in, and he's just covered in the snow. And I always thought that part was so funny. It just got me every time.
That's great. Yeah. Being able to revisit some of these with my son has been great. I love introducing them to something from when I was their age. Both my sons. It's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. But now we come to my favorite part of the show. So this is a little segment I like to call Gag Me with the Spoon. So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the one of these episodes here. And we have a lot to choose from. So as a guest, I can let you go first, unless you want me to go first, in which case I can do that too.
I'll go first, but
right.
Unfortunately, my opinion hasn't changed since our last show. Where so I do think she was a good young actress, but Jennifer Keaton, when she's playing the Christmas future version of herself, and she's got the sore throat, and they bring in this really horrible looking tree, and she goes, "What a beautiful tree!" That's the part that kind of just makes me cringe a little bit, because it's a little girl trying to play like some sort of old woman voice. And
yeah, it's not great, but it's great. It's just it's not great.
It's funny. Like the whole chaos of that episode is fun, but it's not her finest acting.
Well, I also so for my number one, the no room at the end, there's a part where Kirk's love is gone, and he's just kind of sitting on the couch, and he's just mad because he's gonna be all alone for Christmas, and he says, "Christmas is really stupid." And I just thought, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things you could say, but he's just so upset. Oh man. And it's been fantastic, but I got to know, G.I. Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you think the other half is?
Make sure the parachute works before jumping out of an airplane.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a very good one. That's better than mine. I said if knowing's half the battle, the other half is just having a great Christmas episode.
That's true too.
Oh man, but what do you want to plug? Tell me about your book and anything else out there.
Yeah, it's the same as before. It's the Christmas book, The Ultimate Guide to Your Favorite Holiday. It came out last year. September or something like that. But I am going to try to update it each year. So I would say later this fall, there'll be a 2022 version, and I'll add a couple things. I watched, like the Hawkeye Christmas mini series. There's some stuff I'll add to it, and some things that I'll revisit, or things that I missed that I, in my head, I'm like, oh, I gotta fix that. I gotta add something. So, later this year, I will come out with a new version. But it goes through every aspect of Christmas. I break down movies that have some Christmas aspects of it, but are not outright Christmas movies. And I go through all of the television by genre, from action shows, sitcoms, medical dramas, and I list the Christmas shows and revisit my favorite ones of those. But it's kind of like a book version of what we discussed today.
It is, but it's also so much more. I mean, there's the very first chapter is just about the origins of Christmas. You have stuff on Christmas food, like why we wear ugly Christmas sweaters. You also have, and I like this section, where it's just other stuff that happened on Christmas, like births and deaths and things like, I mean, those are cool. And there's a whole chapter just on versions of A Christmas Carol that is really neat.
Right. I ranked 100 of them.
100, yeah. So it's definitely worth getting. If you ever wanted to know anything about Santa Claus or just why we do what we do, you have to have this book. If you love Christmas, this is the book to get. So thanks again for writing it, and thanks for being on. It was fun.
Thanks for having me on. This is right in my wheelhouse to be able to talk about Christmas in the 80s. I love it, and I'm a big fan of your show.
Oh, thank you.
I hope to one day do it again.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll get something, especially I got a few things planned down the line. I'll send you a couple of emails and we'll figure it out. But
excellent.
Right on. And on that note, I'm going to end it by saying, what's the matter with you people? The first Christmas was in a manger. They did okay. So what if we're stuck in this crummy dump? Christmas isn't about presents or Santa Claus or cows. It's about a feeling. It's about checking us out on our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram at Totally Rad Christmas and Twitter at Rad Christmas. And if you're feeling like Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and Sophia, realizing that they're family, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to check out our merch shop on tpublic.com and our brand new website, totallyradchristmas.com, courtesy of Tis the Podcast Elf, Tom Crow. Later, dudes.
I'm Chris.
I'm Brian.
I'm John.
Together, we host the Yuletide TV podcast, where we're on the quest to find the best Christmas TV episodes ever made.
On our podcast, we'll recap the episode, share a little bit of our own holiday memories, and go down a few non-Christmas tangents.
And at the end, we'll let you know if what we watched is a Christmas classic, a lump of coal, or something in between.
Best of all, you can watch along with us, because we only cover episodes that are readily available on major streaming services.
We like our eggnog spiked, so get ready for some hot takes served with a healthy dose of Christmas cheer.
Tune in for our Season 2 lineup reveal on November 2nd, and then look for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from November 23rd, which is legally Thanksgiving, until Christmas Day.
Our podcast may not be for everyone, but no matter what, we're glad you're alive.